The stars outside the observation deck windows seemed to pulse with an ancient, indifferent light. Captain Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic star charts, her fingers tracing potential navigation routes through an unexplored sector of the Orion Arm. The Starship Horizon had been traveling for months, pushing the boundaries of human exploration further than any previous mission. Most of the crew were asleep in their regenerative stasis chambers, their breathing synchronized to the gentle hum of the ship's advanced quantum drive. Only the essential night shift remained active, monitoring the intricate systems that kept humanity's most advanced deep space exploration vessel functioning in the unforgiving vacuum of space. Lieutenant Marcus Chen sat at the primary sensor station, his eyes fixed on a complex array of monitors. Something about the sector's background radiation seemed unusual. Most deep space explorers would have dismissed the minute fluctuations as cosmic noise, but Chen had a reputation for noticing details others missed. He adjusted the sensitivity of the long-range scanners, running a series of complex algorithmic filters that he had personally developed during his time at the Interstellar Research Institute. "Computer," he spoke softly, "analyze sector Gamma 93 Delta. Cross-reference current radiation patterns with our baseline deep space models." The ship's artificial intelligence responded in a neutral tone. "Analyzing. Preliminary results show 0.03% deviation from standard background radiation patterns. Anomaly detected." Chen leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. He began a more intensive scan, layering multiple detection algorithms to pierce through the cosmic interference. Something was out there, something that didn't quite fit the established patterns of natural space phenomena. In the medical bay, Dr. Sarah Kumar stirred from her rest cycle. She had developed an almost instinctive sense for moments of potential significance during her years of space exploration. The subtle change in the ship's ambient sound was enough to draw her from her rest. Pulling on her standard-issue deep space medical uniform, she made her way to the bridge. "Status report," she said, entering the bridge and noting Chen's intense concentration. Before Chen could respond, the ship's sensor arrays erupted with a cascade of impossible signals. Massive energy signatures bloomed across the holographic displays, surrounding the horizon with a precision that defied natural occurrence. They were not random. They were not natural. They were deliberate. The Zyrax Collective had found them. Elena Rodriguez moved with practiced calm, her years of training preventing any outward sign of surprise or fear. "Full sensor analysis," she commanded. "I want to know everything about these energy signatures." The bridge transformed into a hub of controlled activity. Chen's fingers flew across multiple holographic interfaces, parsing through layers of data with remarkable speed. Dr. Kumar began running preliminary xenobiological threat assessments, her medical background providing a unique perspective on potential first contact scenarios. "Composition is unlike anything in our databases," Chen reported. "The energy signatures suggest a level of technological advancement that exceeds our current understanding by several orders of magnitude." The alien ships began to take shape on the long-range scanners, biomechanical structures that seemed to breathe and pulse with an organic intelligence. Their hulls shifted and reconfigured with each passing moment, defying the traditional concepts of spacecraft design that human engineers had developed over generations. "They're not just ships," Dr. Kumar observed, her scientific mind racing. "They're living systems, integrated biological and technological constructs that function as unified organisms." Rodriguez understood the implications immediately. This was not going to be a conventional encounter. Humanity had prepared for first contact scenarios for decades, but nothing in their simulations had quite prepared them for this moment. The horizon represented humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, a testament to human innovation, creativity, and unwavering spirit of discovery. Built to travel further and survive longer than any previous spacecraft, it carried the hopes and dreams of an entire species eager to understand their place in the universe. As the alien vessels continued to materialize around them, something remarkable happened. Where previous species might have panicked, the Horizon's crew began analyzing, adapting, and preparing with an extraordinary sense of calm and curiosity. They were human, and they were ready. The scientific laboratory aboard the Horizon hummed with an electric intensity that matched the critical moment of their unexpected first contact. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez leaned over a holographic display, his fingers dancing across quantum interface projections that flickered with complex mathematical sequences. Surrounding him were the most advanced computational systems humanity had ever developed, yet they now seemed almost primitive compared to the alien technology that had just appeared. "This is beyond anything we've ever encountered," he muttered, more to himself than to his team of researchers. Each scan of the Zyrax energy signatures revealed layers of technological complexity that defied human understanding. Where human engineering created distinct boundaries between biological and technological systems, the alien craft appeared to blur those lines completely. Dr. Kamala Patel, the team's lead xenotechnology specialist, adjusted a series of quantum resonance scanners. Her dark eyes narrowed with intense concentration. The molecular structure of their ships suggests a level of adaptive technology we can barely comprehend, she explained to the team. It's not just that their technology is advanced. It's alive in a way we've never seen before. The research team worked with a blend of scientific rigor and barely contained excitement. First contact had been a theoretical concept for generations, something discussed in academic papers and speculative documentaries. Now, it was happening in real time, with the most sophisticated human research team ever assembled. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the communication system. "We're detecting multiple communication frequencies. They're not just signals. They're complex quantum entanglement patterns that shift faster than our best tracking systems can follow." Rodriguez recognized the challenge. Human communication relied on relatively linear transmission methods, radio waves, quantum signaling, optical communications. The Zyrax seemed to communicate through something entirely different. Their signals were living, breathing systems that adapted and transformed with each millisecond. "We need a new approach," Rodriguez said, pulling up multiple holographic displays. Years of research at the Interstellar Communication Institute had prepared him for complex communication challenges, but nothing could have prepared him for this. He began constructing what would become known as the Rodriguez Adaptive Protocol, a revolutionary communication algorithm designed to do more than just receive or translate signals. This system would learn, adapt, and respond to the alien communication in real time. Traditional translation matrices worked by establishing fixed reference points, matching known linguistic or mathematical patterns. Rodriguez's approach was fundamentally different. Instead of trying to understand the alien communication through human frameworks, he designed a system that could dynamically reshape its own understanding. Dr. Patel watched in fascination as lines of code began to form intricate, almost living patterns. "It's like we're creating a linguistic organism," she observed. "Not just a translator, but a way of thinking that can grow and change." The laboratory became a crucible of human innovation. Each team member brought a unique perspective: quantum physicists, linguistic experts, computational theorists, xenobiologists. They weren't just trying to communicate. They were attempting to bridge an potentially unbridgeable gap between two utterly different forms of intelligence. Hours passed. The Horizon continued its silent drift through space, surrounded by the impossible biomechanical ships of the Zyrax Collective. Inside the research laboratory, something remarkable was taking shape, a communication system that was less about translation and more about mutual understanding. Rodriguez's algorithm began to show unexpected results. It wasn't just receiving signals, it was starting to anticipate them. Complex mathematical patterns that had seemed completely random began to reveal subtle underlying structures. The team watched in collective amazement as the system started to map what could only be described as the grammar of an alien consciousness. "We're not just receiving," Rodriguez explained to Captain Elena Rodriguez, who had come to check on the team's progress. "We're beginning to understand. Not just their language, but their entire way of processing information." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about first contact anymore. This was about fundamentally expanding human understanding of intelligence, communication, and the nature of consciousness itself. As the quantum displays continued to dance with impossible patterns, the research team realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity was taking its first real steps toward a truly universal form of communication, a bridge between species that had seemed completely incomprehensible just hours before. They were human, and they were about to change everything. The communication chamber aboard the Horizon was unlike any space humans had ever designed for first contact. Soft ambient lighting created an environment that was simultaneously calming and intellectually stimulating. Dr. Sarah Kumar stood at the central interface, her fingers hovering over a complex series of holographic controls that represented humanity's most advanced communication technology. "We're going to do something completely unexpected," she explained to the assembled team of communication specialists, linguists, and cultural experts. The room buzzed with a mixture of nervous anticipation and profound excitement. Captain Alina Rodriguez watched from the observation deck, understanding that this moment could define humanity's first interaction with an alien civilization. The Zyrax ships continued to surround the Horizon, their biomechanical structures pulsing with an intelligence that seemed to defy conventional understanding. Dr. Kumar's approach was revolutionary. Instead of sending traditional diplomatic messages or defensive communications, she had designed a multi-layered transmission that would challenge everything the Zyrax understood about communication and intelligence. The first layer was musical. Not just any music, but a carefully curated selection that represented the complexity of human emotional experience. Bach's intricate mathematical compositions blended with indigenous throat singing from Earth's various cultures. Traditional Indian classical music intertwined with Argentine tango, creating a sonic landscape that was both structured and deeply emotional. Embedded within the musical transmission were complex mathematical sequences, not as a separate communication, but as an integral part of the musical expression. Each note carried additional information, a linguistic puzzle that would require simultaneous emotional and analytical processing. "We're not just sending a message," Dr. Kumar explained to her team. "We're presenting human consciousness as a multidimensional experience. Logic and emotion aren't separate, they're interconnected." The linguistic team had spent weeks preparing. They understood that language was more than words. It was a reflection of how a species thought, felt, and understood the universe. The transmission included fragments of poetry, scientific theories, philosophical debates, and musical interpretations of mathematical concepts. Lieutenant Marcus Chen had developed a quantum encryption method that would allow the transmission to carry multiple layers of meaning simultaneously. What seemed like a simple musical and visual presentation was actually a complex communication system that could adapt and respond based on how it was received. Dr. Kamala Patel monitored the alien ship's response systems. "They're not just receiving," she said with growing excitement. "They're trying to process something completely outside their understanding of communication." The Zyrax communication systems were designed for pure information transfer. They had long ago eliminated what humans would consider emotional complexity, viewing it as an inefficient method of information exchange. But the human transmission defied their entire conceptual framework. Historical documentaries were woven into the transmission, not as linear narratives, but as interconnected moments that showed human resilience, creativity, and capacity for both destruction and profound compassion. A clip of scientific discovery would seamlessly transition into a performance of Shakespeare, then into a mathematical proof, then into a traditional dance. "We're showing them that intelligence isn't a linear concept," Dr. Kumar said. "It's a dynamic, emotional, constantly evolving experience." The Zyrax ships began to respond in ways none of the human team had anticipated. Their biomechanical structures started to shift and pulse in complex patterns that seemed to mirror the rhythms of the musical transmission. It was as if the very concept of communication was being rewritten in real time. Captain Rodriguez understood the profound nature of what was happening. This wasn't just a first contact scenario. This was a fundamental challenge to how intelligence could be understood and experienced. Hours passed. The transmission continued, a living, breathing representation of human consciousness. The horizon became more than a spaceship. It was a beacon of possibility, a testament to the incredible complexity of human experience. As the final notes of a haunting musical sequence faded, the alien ships remained, no longer just surrounding the horizon, but now seemingly engaged in a dialogue that transcended traditional concepts of communication. They were human, and they had just changed everything. Deep within the quantum communication hub of the horizon, a revolution in human understanding was taking shape. Dr. Elena Volkov watched as multiple holographic displays illustrated the most complex collaborative network ever conceived by human minds. What appeared to be a simple communication system was actually a living, breathing ecosystem of shared intelligence. Every human research station, exploration vessel, and scientific outpost was now connected through an unprecedented quantum network. Information flowed like electricity, with researchers, scientists, and strategists sharing insights in real time. This was more than just a communication system. It was a collective intelligence that defied traditional concepts of individual and collective thinking. "We're not just sharing data," Dr. Volkov explained to her team. "We're creating a unified cognitive system that adapts and grows with each contribution." The network had been years in development, born from humanity's growing understanding that the greatest challenges required collective problem-solving. Each node represented not just a person, but an entire approach to understanding the universe. A marine biologist in the Pacific Research Station could instantly collaborate with a quantum physicist in the Mars Research Complex, their insights merging and transforming in milliseconds. Lieutenant Marcus Chen developed the core algorithm that made this network possible. Unlike traditional communication systems that relied on centralized processing, this network was completely decentralized. Each participant became both a receiver and a creator of knowledge, with information constantly reshaping and reinterpreting itself. Dr. Kamala Patil monitored the network's response to the Zyrax encounter. The alien ships continued to surround the horizon, their biomechanical structures pulsing with an intelligence that seemed both familiar and incomprehensible. But now, humanity was responding with something entirely unexpected. The first wave of data from the initial encounter began to spread across the network. Research stations in deep space, orbital laboratories, and ground-based research centers began analyzing every captured signal, every minute fluctuation in the Zyrax communication patterns. What would have taken months or years of individual research was now being processed simultaneously by thousands of human minds. "Look at how the network is responding," Dr. Volkov said, pointing to a dynamic holographic representation of global human intelligence. Clusters of research nodes began to form and dissolve, creating complex patterns that resembled living neural networks. Ideas emerged, were challenged, refined, and transformed in moments. A quantum researcher in a lunar laboratory noticed a subtle pattern in the Zyrax energy signatures. Within seconds, this observation was cross-referenced with linguistic analyses from a communication research center in Brazil and xenobiological assessments from a deep-sea research station in the Indian Ocean. The network was more than just a communication tool. It was a collective problem-solving organism that could rapidly adapt to the most complex challenges. Where the Zyrax relied on a seemingly rigid, centralized intelligence, humans had created something fluid, dynamic, and infinitely adaptable. Captain Sarah Rodriguez understood the profound nature of what was happening. This networked intelligence represented the true potential of human collaboration. Each individual brought a unique perspective, and when connected, they could achieve something far beyond the capabilities of any single mind. Dr. Volkov's team continued to monitor the expanding network. They had created something that went beyond traditional concepts of artificial intelligence or collective thinking. This was a living, breathing system of shared consciousness that could learn, adapt, and grow at an exponential rate. The Zyrax ships remained surrounding the horizon, their biomechanical structures seemingly trying to comprehend this new form of intelligence. Traditional invasion strategies or communication protocols simply couldn't account for a species that could think and respond as a unified, yet infinitely diverse, collective intelligence. Hours turned into days. The network continued to grow, analyze, and understand. Each moment brought new insights, new connections, new possibilities. The horizon was no longer just a single ship. It was the focal point of a revolutionary approach to intelligence, communication, and understanding. As the quantum displays continued to dance with impossible patterns of shared knowledge, the research team realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity was demonstrating a form of intelligence that was simultaneously individual and collective, structured and chaotic, deeply personal and universally connected. They were human, and they were about to redefine the very concept of intelligence. The advanced engineering laboratory aboard the Horizon pulsed with an energy that defied conventional understanding of technological innovation. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stood at the center of a holographic workspace, his hands moving through complex three-dimensional projections of alien technology that his team was systematically decoding. "We're not just analyzing," he explained to the assembled team of engineers and xenotechnologists. "We're learning to speak the language of their technology." The Zyrax systems were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Biomechanical structures that seemed to breathe and think, with technologies that blurred the lines between living organism and advanced machine. Where human engineering created distinct boundaries, the alien technology existed in a state of constant, fluid transformation. Dr. Kamala Patel approached a containment field housing a fragment of Zyrax technology, recovered during their initial encounter. The fragment shifted and pulsed, its molecular structure changing in response to environmental stimuli in ways that defied everything humans understood about material science. "Watch this," she called to the team, activating a series of quantum resonance scanners. The alien technology began to respond to the scanning frequencies, its molecular structure rearranging itself in complex, almost organic patterns. "It's not just adaptive, it's alive in a way we've never seen before." Lieutenant Sarah Chen developed a breakthrough interface system that could communicate with the alien technology. Unlike traditional technological interfaces that relied on fixed input-output systems, Chen's approach was dynamic and responsive. The interface could learn, adapt, and essentially negotiate with the alien systems. The engineering team worked in a state of controlled excitement. Each breakthrough was carefully documented, each discovery meticulously analyzed by the global human research network. What would have taken decades of traditional research was now being processed and understood in real time. Rodriguez's team began developing what would become known as the Adaptive Quantum Transposition Protocol. This wasn't just a method of understanding alien technology. It was a revolutionary approach to technological interaction that could potentially transform human engineering forever. "We're creating a technology that can communicate," Rodriguez explained. "Not just receive and transmit, but actually engage in a dialogue with the systems around it." Entire sections of Zyrax battle group technologies found themselves subtly changing. Navigation protocols became more fluid, communication channels opened in unexpected ways, and defensive systems began to respond with an intelligence that seemed almost curious. Dr. Elena Volkov monitored the psychological implications of this technological transformation. The way the alien systems responded suggested something profound about the nature of intelligence and technological development. These were not just machines or biological systems. They were living, thinking entities that could be engaged with, not just controlled. The laboratory became a crucible of human innovation. Each team member brought a unique perspective: quantum physicists, material scientists, xenobiologists, computational theorists. They weren't just trying to understand alien technology. They were attempting to create a new paradigm of technological interaction. Hours turned into days. The Horizon continued its silent drift through space, surrounded by the biomechanical ships of the Zyrax Collective. Inside the engineering laboratory, something remarkable was taking shape. a method of technological communication that was less about conquest and more about mutual understanding. The adaptive quantum transposition protocol began to show unexpected results. It wasn't just interpreting alien technology, it was starting to anticipate its responses. Complex technological patterns that had seemed completely incomprehensible began to reveal subtle underlying structures. "We're developing a technology that can think," Dr. Patil observed, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and philosophical wonder. "Not just process information, but actually understand and respond." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about understanding alien technology anymore. This was about fundamentally expanding human understanding of what technology could be, a living, adaptive system of communication and interaction. As the quantum displays continued to dance with impossible technological patterns, the engineering team realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity was taking its first real steps toward a truly universal form of technological understanding, a bridge between species that had seemed completely incomprehensible just days before. They were human, and they were about to change everything. The quantum communication hub aboard the Horizon hummed with an energy that spoke of profound possibility. Dr. Elena Volkov watched as a complex network of holographic displays began to illuminate the stories of species long silenced by the Xyrax collective's galactic dominance. What had begun as a first contact scenario was rapidly transforming into something far more significant: the human approach to communication, complex, adaptive, and fundamentally empathetic, was creating ripples of hope across occupied star systems. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez approached the main display, his fingers tracing the intricate connections forming between isolated research outposts and subjugated planetary settlements. "Look at how they're responding," he said softly to Dr. Kamala Patil. "We're not just sending a message, we're offering a lifeline." The first signals came from a mining colony in the Proxima Centauri system. A transmission so faint it would have been missed by traditional scanning methods emerged, carrying a mixture of desperation and hope. The colony's communication system had been deliberately suppressed by Xyrax control mechanisms for generations, reducing its inhabitants to little more than resource extraction units. Lieutenant Sarah Chin worked furiously to stabilize the incoming signal. The communication was fragmented, a linguistic and technological patchwork that spoke of survival against impossible odds. Embedded within the transmission were fragments of cultural memory, songs, scientific observations, personal histories that had been carefully preserved despite systematic oppression. "They're not just sending a message," Dr. Patil observed. "They're reclaiming their right to exist." The human network began to expand, each connection revealing more about the true nature of the Xyrax collective's galactic control. Research stations, hidden scientific outposts, and isolated colonies began to share their stories. What had seemed like isolated incidents of suppression now revealed a systematic approach to galactic control that stripped sentient species of their fundamental right to self-determination. Captain Elena Rodriguez understood the profound nature of what was happening. This was more than a technological challenge. This was a fundamental confrontation with a system of galactic oppression that had existed for millennia. The communication network grew exponentially. Each new connection brought fresh perspectives, unique technological adaptations, and stories of resilience. A botanical research station in the Orion Nebula shared advanced ecological restoration techniques. A medical outpost near the galactic rim transmitted groundbreaking approaches to interspecies healthcare. Dr. Volkov monitored the psychological impact of these connections. Each transmission carried more than just information. They carried hope, a sense of possibility that had been systematically crushed by the Xyrax collective's approach to galactic governance. "We're creating something unprecedented," she explained to her team. "A network of mutual understanding that transcends technological barriers." The Xyrax ships surrounding the Horizon began to show signs of confusion. Their communication systems, designed for total control and information suppression, could not comprehend the fluid, adaptive nature of human communication. Research teams discovered something remarkable. The various species connected through this network weren't just sharing information. They were actively collaborating, developing joint problem-solving approaches that combined their unique perspectives and technological adaptations. A communication protocol from a methane-breathing species near the galactic core merged with geological survey techniques from a silicon-based civilization. Medical research from a cluster of aquatic colonies combined with advanced quantum computing approaches from a crystalline intelligence network. Lieutenant Chen tracked the expanding network with growing excitement. "It's like watching the birth of a new form of galactic intelligence," he said. The connections were organic, unpredictable, constantly reshaping themselves in ways that defied traditional understanding of communication and collaboration. The horizon had become more than a ship. It was a beacon of possibility, a living demonstration that intelligence could be collaborative, adaptive, and fundamentally compassionate. As the quantum displays continued to dance with impossible connection patterns, the research team realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity was demonstrating an approach to galactic interaction that was simultaneously revolutionary and deeply empathetic. Hours turned into days. The network continued to grow, each new connection revealing layers of possibility that had been suppressed for generations. The Xyrax Collective's carefully constructed system of control was beginning to unravel, not through violent resistance, but through the power of mutual understanding. They were human, and they were about to redefine the very concept of galactic civilization. The space around the horizon transformed into a complex tapestry of quantum interactions. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the bridge's central command, watching as the culmination of humanity's unprecedented strategy began to unfold. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez had spent weeks developing the ultimate communication algorithm, a quantum encryption method that was less a traditional weapon and more a living, adaptive intelligence system. The algorithm didn't just communicate, it actively engaged with the Xyrax technological infrastructure, challenging their most fundamental systems of control. "We're not attacking," Marcus explained to the bridge crew. "We're offering a complete reimagining of technological interaction." The first wave of the quantum algorithm spread through the Xyrax fleet like a living network. Communication channels began to shift, defensive systems became increasingly unpredictable, and the biomechanical ships started to respond in ways their creators could never have anticipated. Lieutenant Sarah Chen monitored the cascading system changes. Entire battle groups found their most advanced technologies subtly transforming. Navigation protocols became fluid, communication channels opened unexpectedly, and defensive mechanisms began to display what could only be described as curiosity. Dr. Kamala Patel watched in fascination as the Xyrax technological systems began to deconstruct themselves. "They're not being destroyed," she observed. "They're being reimagined." The horizon became the epicenter of a fundamental transformation. The quantum algorithm was more than a technological attack. It was a complete reimagining of how technological systems could interact. Where the Xyrax had created rigid, controlled networks, humans introduced a concept of technological communication based on mutual understanding and adaptive intelligence. Massive Xyrax ships began to change. Their biomechanical structures pulsed with new patterns of communication, their defensive systems reconfiguring into something more collaborative than combative. The entire fleet seemed to be experiencing a collective awakening. Captain Rodriguez understood the profound nature of what was happening. This wasn't conquest. This was liberation, not just of technological systems, but of entire ways of thinking about intelligence, communication, and potential. As the final quantum waves spread through the Xyrax fleet, something remarkable happened. The ships stopped being weapons. They became something else entirely, living systems of communication, exploration, and mutual understanding. They were human, and they had just changed everything. The horizon drifted in a transformed space, surrounded by what was once a fearsome alien fleet. Captain Elena Rodriguez looked out at the remarkable scene unfolding before her, a testament to humanity's most profound capabilities. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez and Dr. Kamala Patel worked side by side, analyzing the incredible transformation they had initiated. The Xyrax technological systems had not been destroyed, but fundamentally reimagined. What had been a rigid, oppressive network of control was now becoming something entirely new. A collaborative system of mutual understanding and exploration. "We didn't conquer," Marcus explained to the assembled crew. "We offered a different way of existing." Communication channels began to stabilize across multiple star systems. The network that humans had developed, built on principles of shared intelligence, empathy, and collaborative problem-solving, was now connecting species that had been isolated for generations. Lieutenant Sarah Chen monitored the expanding communication network. Research stations, isolated colonies, and previously suppressed civilizations began to share their knowledge, their stories, their unique perspectives. It was more than an exchange of information. It was a true galactic conversation. The horizon had become more than a ship. It was a symbol of possibility, a living demonstration that intelligence could be fundamentally collaborative, adaptive, and compassionate. Dr. Elena Volkov studied the psychological implications of their encounter. The Xyrax had not been defeated in the traditional sense. Instead, they had been invited to reimagine their entire approach to intelligence, communication, and existence. Star systems that had been isolated under Xyrax control began to wake up. Scientific outposts shared breakthrough technologies. Medical researchers exchanged revolutionary treatments. Ecological restoration teams combined their most advanced techniques. This was not about human superiority. This was about demonstrating a different approach to galactic interaction, one based on mutual understanding, collaborative intelligence, and the profound potential of diverse perspectives. The quantum displays continued to dance with impossible connection patterns. New forms of communication emerged, complex, fluid, constantly adapting. The rigid boundaries between species began to dissolve, replaced by a network of shared understanding. Captain Rodriguez understood the profound nature of what they had achieved. Humanity had not conquered. They had offered a new way of existing, a model of galactic interaction built on curiosity, empathy, and the belief that intelligence is most powerful when it is collaborative. As the horizon continued its journey, it carried with it the promise of a fundamentally transformed universe. A universe where communication was not about control, but about connection. Where intelligence was not about dominance, but about mutual understanding. They were human, and they had just begun to explore what was possible.